The Jegan from Char's Counterattack is a suitable replacement for the Gym 3, increasing its capabilities in all aspects. When the military requests new equipment, multiple machines are proposed before the final selection. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the proposed replacements for the Gym 3, the RGM-88X Jeda. This model kit is a 1/100 scale representation of the Jeda for Mobile Suit Moon Gundam, brought to us by a new brand, Plamo Loving Alien, or PLA for short. The kit that you see on screen in the B-roll has been fully completed with panel lining, the inbox decals applied, as well as a matte top coat, with no additional paintwork done. What you see is a completed straight-built Jeda. Before we get into the review, let's talk about the elephant in the room. While the kit may be manufactured by PLA, it does need to be mentioned that the design itself comes from Rocky Q, a 3D artist known for stunning renditions of mobile suits from Gundam. Rocky's designs have been updated to show increased surface detailing and aesthetics, giving the designs more realistic flair. While PLA manufactured this design into a kit, the credit for the design goes entirely to Rocky Q. According to a statement made on Rocky Q's Patreon, he is not affiliated with any company that is producing his designs as model kits. That would also include the 1/120th scale Yaya G Cubile. If you'd like to support Rocky's work, I'll link the Patreon down in the description below. If you're still curious about this kit, then join me for a deep dive as we review the 1/100 scale Jeda. If you like this video and want to support the channel, drop a like and maybe even consider subscribing. We're always talking Gundam on this channel, and it would be great to have you as a part of the Gunpla Garage community. The Jeda is made from a hefty amount of 21 runners. These runners are molded in 8 different colors, with a total piece count of 330 parts. There's also a stand included that's made of 5 parts. Included is also an LED for the head and some batteries for this magnet-activated LED. The aesthetics of the Jeda are some I enjoy quite a bit. I love the added surface detailing throughout the design. It really makes this look like a real mech with the hatches and panels throughout the whole kit. In lore, the Jeda stands 21.8 meters tall. In kit form, it stands taller than my Master Grade St. Andrew Stein narrative, Verka, which is supposed to be 22.6 meters tall. The Jeda stands almost at the same height as the Master Grade Sazabi Verka, so we're a little off scale here with the PLA Jeda. While this makes for an enjoyable big build, we don't typically see grunt suits being taller than commander suits from the same era. This makes the Jeda a bit of an outlier when it comes to your shelf presence. The Jeda is deceptive, appearing to assemble quite easily with a lot of parts being 2 halves put together. Because of this, the assembly goes together very quickly. Once I had all my parts prepped and ready for assembly, it only took me about an hour and a half to fully assemble the Jeda. There are a few gimmicks here that are built in well to the construction of the Jeda, such as the pistons on the front ankle, as well as the pistons that are revealed within the arm upon a full bicep curl. These little gimmicks didn't add any intricacy to the build and made for a great presentation once the build was completed. The deception is revealed as fitment of all these parts snapping together is fair at best and pretty poor at worst. During my build, I only had a few parts fall off from not having enough clutch power during assembly, but this was really only on the rear thruster armor of the leg, and the Vulcan pod on the head. While posing the inner frame, I did notice the lower waist like to separate from not having a peg at the bottom to keep it all together. There's some areas here that need outer armor applied to get full stability out of this kit. Be aware of this if you're like me and like to build and pose the inner frame first before applying the outer armor. After applying the outer armor, I did notice some areas where the fitment was poor. This would lead to noticeable gaps on the armor seams, so something on either the frame or the armor would have to be trimmed to get this gap to sit more flush. These loose parts are easy to fix with some glue, so that wasn't really a bother to me. What was more of a bother to me was having to trim parts as well as the very tight fitting parts. There are 2 very small pistons that need to be inserted into the side of the neck. These are the 2 smallest parts of the build, and their peg and socket is extremely tight. Getting these parts to go to their home was very difficult because the part was so small. This was nearly real grade levels of small, which is rather unprecedented for a quote-unquote master grade. Thankfully, these are the 2 smallest parts on the entire build. The other area that gave me issue was the ankle armor. The armor that wraps around the side of the ankle mounts on 2 small pegs on the front with very tight tolerances. It is very easy to break these pegs off just trying to get this armor onto these tight pegs. Unfortunately, I ended up snapping the mounting pegs on one of these armors, and I ended up having to glue the side ankle armor back on. While most of this kit assembled easily, these small instances of loose and tight fitment were very frustrating. These fitment issues are compounded by the plastic quality. The plastic here is extremely soft. This might be some of the softest plastic I've seen on a kit to date. This makes prep work for the parts extremely easy, but does not bode well for stability. During my final assembly, the mounting ball joint for the front shin pushed in because the plastic was so weak. I could not put the shin armor onto the leg without bracing the rear of the ball joint with some tweezers. I'm honestly surprised I didn't end up snapping or shearing the ball joint off the plastic. I would be very careful and do your best to not even try and force any parts together. If a part on this kit is not assembling smoothly, trim a little bit off the peg or the socket to get it to assemble more smoothly. This soft plastic not only affects the assembly but the completed model as well. The torso to waist peg as well as the arm to torso peg is extremely tight with its fitment. You can squeeze these parts on, but you could very easily snap apart trying to articulate this kit. For this kit, I had to absolutely sand down the torso to waist and torso to arm pegs just to get these to an acceptable level, and even the sockets for the legs to waist connection has some stress marks on it from the weaker plastic. These are pretty typical third-party model kit issues, so fans of these types of kits are more well versed with third-party jank, but those new to the hobby or coming around to third-party kits might find a few of these hurdles challenging. The Jeda is going to be demanding of your modeling skills and is not a simple breezy out-of-the-box experience. Just because assembly can be a bit more challenging, that doesn't mean the rest of the kit doesn't have its merits. For this build, I panel lined the Jeda with Tamiya accent color black and cleaned up with Zippo lighter fluid. With this kit being a Rocky Q design, there's quite a bit more detail to this Jeda over anime accuracy, or in this instance, manga accuracy. The Tamiya liner flowed well into all these panel lines, making for succinct details. Cleaning up the Tamiya was relatively easy. However, similar to the Axis Osiris that we looked at earlier this year, the plastic here has a sort of matte look to it from the factory. This makes clearing the liner a little smudged at times, but a little bit of elbow grease will take these smudges right out. If you're careful with your cleanup, you can clean up these smudges without removing the panel line itself. I didn't have to go over any of my own lines again during the panel lining process. This is a big plus as I don't like touching the same part twice. While there are more details here, it is done in a tasteful way that if you wanted to line these details with a pen, I don't see the process taking very long either. A Pigma Micron .003 pen would make short work of this Jeda. The seam lines for the Jeda are okay, with your biggest hurdle for these seam lines being the fitment of these parts coming together as tight as possible. Once you fix all the fitment gaps, a good portion of the seam lines end up flowing with armor panels, leading to the seam lines looking naturally like panel lines. This handles a good portion of the seam lines on this kit, meaning you don't have to spend too much time sealing seams if you're going for a perfect or competition build. With that said, there will always be seam lines here and there when it comes to model building. Both halves of the shoulder armor come together to leave a seam down the middle, as does the upper torso armor coming together to leave a seam that pretty much lines up with the shoulder armor seam. These two seams are really the biggest ones that can't be masked as a panel line and would benefit from being sealed. The rest of the seam lines on the Jeda can all be masked as a panel line with a run of the pen. The color accuracy for the Jeda is perfect out of the box. Everything is color separated, including the thrusters, which is a really nice touch and adds a popping contrast to the rear view of the model. There are some areas on the outward armor where the inner frame pokes through to add a bit more color to the kit, adding to the detail and contrast of colors on display here. With a mostly green and gray kit, the darker green comes in very nice in tasteful sections to break up the light green and give the design additional depth to prevent it from being too monotone in its colorway. Not only is the kit color accurate out of the box, the Jeda also includes a sheet of water slide decals. This is a decent sheet of decals that are scaled well for the Jeda. The base decal scheme on the back of the manual is very low key, but there are some extra decals here which I took the liberty of adding to try and distribute the decals a little more evenly. In the manual, there's no layout for decals on the side of the arms, which I felt made the kit look a little naked, so I'm glad extras were included to flesh out the Jeda a bit more to my liking. The decals here were very easy to use, lifting off the decal paper within 5 seconds of being in warm water. I experienced no issues when applying these decals, making applying the decals a relaxing experience. These decals add some additional value to this kit. Finding 1/100 scale specific decals for a Jeda would have had to be a custom print, so I'm happy these were included. While the soft plastic may cause issues for fitment and reliability, it does make cleaning up nub marks incredibly easy. The Jeda here is mostly undergated. In fact, it would be quicker for me to give you the number of parts that was gated normally. This kit is perfect for the 2-cut method, making most manner of nub removal extremely easy and rather quick. That said, there are a few nubs here that are gated in the middle of a valley, so you want to have an X-Acto blade handy so you can finish those nubs off, as there's no way to get the single-bladed nipper in there to the edge of the nub. There's a few of these nubs throughout the build, but it's still easier and quicker to deal with nubs like this than it is to sand nubs for hours. Once the kit was completed, I didn't see many noticeable nub marks, giving you a nice finish and a great looking kit out of the box. Even if there are nubs, it's very easy to sand this down with your fingernail, making very quick work of them. The nub marks aren't the only thing easy to deal with, the mold lines are also easy to deal with. So easy in fact that there's not really any here that are noticeable. The way this kit handles nub marks as well as its mold lines is really nice and cuts down a lot of additional time that would usually be spent doing prep work, so you're able to get to building this Jeda quicker over other master grade kits. With the build covered, let's get into articulation. The head can look up and down an okay amount. It can rotate left to right about 110 degrees of motion. It cannot rotate all the way around. There is slight left to right tilt, but not much. The torso has a decent ab crunch for 25 degrees. There's a left to right lean about 30 degrees in either direction. The torso can rotate 360 degrees on the waist connector, but this is a very tight peg, so make sure you sand it down and rotate from the bottom of the waist armor itself. The front skirt is on a ball joint and can swivel upwards 110 degrees. The side skirts are on a single swivel, allowing them to swing upwards 40 degrees. The rear thrusters can rotate outwards 50 degrees and has a slight swivel from the ball joint. Lastly, there is a leg dropping gimmick built into the waist, so you can drop the legs for increased articulation. For the legs, we'll keep the right leg dropped so you can see how it affects the articulation. Kicking forward, we can get a full 90-degree kick with the leg dropped and about a 70-degree kick with the leg tucked. For the split, we get a 90-degree split with the leg dropped, but an 80-degree split with the leg tucked. Kicking backwards, we can get a 50-degree kick from the dropped leg and about a 45-degree kick from the tucked leg. The leg rotation on the top of the thigh is about 180 degrees of rotation. The knee is double jointed, but the armor is so thick we don't get a decent compression of the leg here, only netting us 90 degrees of articulation. There is a swivel in the ankle for 50 degrees of articulation forwards and backwards. The foot has no left to right rotation, which is a bummer, but does have a decent left to right tilt. The foot can lean forward 30 degrees. And finally, the toe can lift upwards about 20 degrees. The arms have a forward and backward rotation from the torso about 20 degrees. There's also rotation within the torso for an up and down motion of the arms. The shoulder armor is on a swivel for a 70-degree upward rotation. The shoulder itself has a swivel independent of the torso swivel, allowing you to raise the arm for 110 degrees well above a T-pose. The arm can rotate all the way around for some windmill punches, but again, sand down that peg. There's rotation in the bicep for a full 360-degree rotation of the arms. The elbow is double jointed, allowing for a full bicep curl. There is a very slight up and down swivel of the wrist for the hand connection. Finally, the hand is on a ball joint so it can swivel and rotate as a ball joint does. The backpack has 4 thrusters, all on ball joints that can rotate around. The upper thrusters can swivel forwards and backwards. The beam sabers can also drop down forwards and lock back into place upwards. The Jeda comes with 2 beam sabers and their respective blades, a beam rifle, a shield, 2 closed fist beam saber hands, 2 shooting hands, and 2 open expressive hands. Sadly, there's no fully closed fist hands here. The Jeda is also supposed to have a gimmick where the visor lights up. Either the batteries packed into my Jeda or the LED itself was dead on arrival. I wasn't able to get this feature to work. The Jeda also comes with an action base as well as an action base adapter, so you can display the Jeda in the sky or on the stand, though the connection point for the stand is rather loose, so I wouldn't really trust this. If the kit is not perfectly balanced on the bendy straw, so to speak, it will pull right out of the action base, letting the kit topple over. You could glue this into place, but then you'll lose the storage compartment of the action base, so it's honestly a rather poor design. The posability of the Jeda is pretty good, but the kit does feel a little weaker when it comes to stability. For example, if you're trying to rotate the torso on the waist, you best be doing this from the base of the waist. Trying to rotate the torso by spinning the chest will see the chest bend incorrectly in the abdomen. If you twist this too forcefully from the chest, I could see you snapping a piece in the abdomen, thus breaking the kit. Editing Joe here. This did in fact actually snap on me while filming the B-roll, but there will be more on that later. This is a kit that you're going to want to pose gently and smoothly. You don't want to force anything. With that in mind, you are able to make some nice poses here, which is a point that we have to give to PLA, as Rocky's designs are usually static statues, whereas this kit is fully posable. Seeing the piston gimmick work in action in the arm as well as in the ankle is really nice to see. Areas where I found the posability to be limited is definitely in the feet. I wish there was a left to right swivel in the foot, as this can be surprisingly limited for ground poses. The shield snaps on nicely to the forearm, and the Jeda has no issues posing with its payload in any manner that you can think of. Beyond the aesthetics, the posability here is definitely one of the high points. We've reached the end of the review where we talk about the pros and the cons. We like to keep it positive on this channel and go out on a high note, so let's cover the cons first. Our first con is absolutely going to go to the fitment here. The fitment issues I had with this kit were small in number, but coupling with the tight fitment and the soft plastic led to some parts breakage, which is really disappointing to experience. Some of the gaps on the seams are also too wide and needed to be trimmed on the inside to get parts to fit correctly. Our second con is going to be for scale being slightly taller than it's supposed to be. This stands taller than Commander mobile suits from the same era, and this kit does look good, but it is off scale, which might lead to a bit of a wonky shelf presence when placed next to kits of the same size. The third con here would be the action base with the bendy straw. It's a little half-baked and very unstable. It seems like you need to pick having a base with the storage compartment, or you need to glue the bendy straw into place. Gluing this into place would give you more stability, but would make the stand pointless for standing poses, as well as remove the storage compartment. I just wish there was a locking mechanism that was made for the bendy straw rather than what we're provided with. That way it could be used to actually get the kit in air. But as it is now, it's half-baked. Our fourth con is going to be the lack of a foot swivel. I don't see why this couldn't have been implemented. There's plenty of room to make this work, and I'd rather a foot swivel than the very far forward lean from the foot. A foot swivel left to right doesn't sound like a big deal until you get to posing, and then you realize how much of a loss it really is. The fifth and last con is going to be the fragility of the Jeda. The soft plastic here is very malleable, and any form of force is going to weaken the kit to some degree. This will easily lead to broken parts if you're not really gentle and deliberate with your movements of this kit. If you don't take the time to sand tight fitting pegs down and force the articulation, you will break something. The left to right swivel in the waist connector on my Jeda snapped, as did both leg to waist connectors. And this was just from articulating the kit during my B-roll filming. I am not forceful with my kits, so I suspect the soft plastic eventually wears out over time from wear and tear and will just shear off. Now onto the pros. Our first pro will be the aesthetics of the kit and just how good it looks. This is a fantastic looking design, and Rocky did an amazing job bringing the Jeda to life. PLA, on the other hand, did a decent job taking a design intended to be printed as a statue and made it into something articulate and fairly capable. The detail and gimmicks here on the Jeda are nice and do a lot to carry this kit past all of its cons. For the second pro, I want to say that there's a lot of great value here included with this kit, with the parts being fully color separated so the kit is color accurate to the waterslide decals. You can have a really nice looking kit fully complete out of the box. For our third pro, I know I said fitment issues were really bad when they were bad, but the bulk of the assembly is fair and all the prep work was extremely easy. Nub removal and panel lining were both quick processes that didn't cost me hours of my time. The layout of parts was decent for hiding seam lines as panel lines, with only a few to note on the outward armor. The piston gimmick while articulating the kit was a nice touch as well. The Plamo Loving Alien Jeda is a mixed bag. It's a kit that I would call mediocre and even disappointing. Even though the final product looks really good and is decently capable when it comes to most of the articulation, I wouldn't trust the articulation for very long. There's a decent amount of value packed in the box, and it does have a number of good things going for it. However, it would be neglectful of me to say the aesthetics fixes all of this kit's problems. Even though the aesthetics do a lot to soften the blows of the harsh fitment, the aesthetics are still not perfect, as the Jeda is able to stand basically head to head with the Sazabi Verka, and it's supposed to be 3 meters shorter. In every facet I can find a positive, there's also a negative lurking behind it. I don't expect Bandai levels of quality from third party, but I think we've moved past the point of demand quality when it comes to third party releases, with Axis and Fat Cat setting a higher standard. Sadly, this is probably the easiest way to get a 1/100 Jeda, as I don't think we will get one officially from Bandai anytime soon. I enjoyed most of my time with the Jeda, but the cracks started to show towards the end of assembly. I personally don't mind the troubleshooting that third-party kits call for, but I know this isn't everyone's cup of tea either. This is a kit that I would have a really hard time recommending. You'd really have to like the Jeda design, and you absolutely need to be gentle with this kit. Even so, I'm very gentle with my kits, and I still had my abdomen and legs snap from normal articulation. The soft plastic wears out very quickly, and I'm willing to bet there's only so many times a piece can be articulated before it eventually shears off. The Jeda needs to have its joints sanded, and the builder needs to have a lot of patience to get the most out of this kit. This isn't a kit I would even think to recommend to newer builders. If you do plan on getting this kit, make sure you keep some glue on hand as well as some sandpaper, as you're really going to need it to make sure this kit assembles smoothly. I also wouldn't articulate this kit too much, as the soft plastic is very prone to breakage even under adult handled conditions. Be cautious of all I warned you about in this review, and you can get a decent end result, but it's not without some big caveats and third-party jank. At least now you've been well informed of what to look out for, so you can confidently tackle the Jeda. Thank you all so much for watching this review of the Plamo Loving Alien Jeda. If you made it this far in the review, tell me what mobile suit you like more between the Gym 3, the Jegan, or the Jeda. Personally, I'm still a big fan of the Gym 3. I need to give a massive shout out to all my subscribers. You guys make the impossible possible. Thank you for watching and always supporting the channel. Until the next video, be sure to stay safe, have fun, and happy building.